Welcome, everyone. Hello, Dr. Rob. So glad to
Tammy,
see
it
you
is
tonight.
always, oh, well, everybody knows how much I care about you and appreciate you, so I don't need to say that again. But
And it's likewise. So,
I care about you and appreciate you. Nice to talk. And look how many people we try to help. That's a
yeah,
gift.
and it's interesting because we're doing a little project, and I was talking about like my, kind of the greatest hits list of webinars, and so I've been going through all the webinars. Like over the weekend, I was going through more webinars and I was just amazed at how much great content we have. So, if you have not already done so, please check out on our website. You'll see previously recorded webinars. This will go there, but we have just like a vast library of content, and some of them have had like lots of thousands of downloads and views, because the content is important and relevant. We work really hard at having meaningful content, and resources for people on this healing journey. So check that out. You can always email tami@seekingintegrity.com if you've got questions.
I do want to say one thing about the webinars, which
Please.
is it's not just Tammy and I doing this or even my own work. We spend time culling and looking for experts, for example, working on the 12 steps. So Tammy found a few people and actually spent a couple of hours going through each one of them, or, issues about separation or divorce. But it's not just an interview, it's really them sitting down and giving you the detail, the kinds of questions you want to ask. Anyway, it's free. And Tammy's right, I forget we have hundreds of them by now. And a lot of people have wonderfully volunteered. So yeah, it's all on seekingintegrity.com and
Yes.
it's all free. So
Yes. Like literally, I just scanned through 1,300 of them. So, but
Jesus,
I know I need to get a life, but I pulled a bunch of them and
that's
went,
not it. It's that we have so many.
I know. I think there's actually more, but those are the ones I found. So anyway, but they're like, I have a pretty good handle on a lot of them, so I can help.
So I want to push you one step further. If they're on
Yeah.
the website, do they look under resources? Where do they find this? I
So
know
if
we're
you're
redoing
on
the
the
site, but
Seeking
for now.
Integrity site, if you're on the homepage, if you go to resources, which is across the header, you'll see useful videos and it will take you there. You can also go to the bottom of the homepage and it says free resources, sex and relationship healing, and you can click on that and it will take you there, which is where you find the drop-in groups, webinars, podcasts, all of the links for those things. And again, you get stuck, TAMI@seekingintegrity.com, and I'll point you towards things. So
And it's been 8 years since we started, which is so unbelievable. I didn't have hair, but close. And we built a website from scratch. I think we literally built it ourselves. So we have a
we did not
brand
build
new
it
one.
ourselves. We're incompetent to do that, but we did have all
We
kinds of
got it up
input.
there.
Yeah, we created the structure and it's been revised. But yeah, no, we are not qualified to build a website, so we did not do it. We had input on what we wanted on
But
it.
we're going to have a
So
new one that is
yeah,
professionally done, and it will be up in not too long. Anyway, let's get to work. We got work to
yes.
do.
Now we've got questions. Yay! My husband is an SA. He is doing the recovery work and seeing a CSAT and attending groups. Based on his porn internet activity, I'm very concerned when my teenage granddaughter and her friends come to visit. I don't know how to handle this. This is such a great question, and we get these kind of questions all the time. So
Mhm.
I understand, he's looking at images. They are young. So is your granddaughter, teenage kids, and you're going, what's going to happen? So can you help, please, Dr. Rob?
Well, I think there's two questions here. I mean, one is, if he looking at this or they're looking at that, um, is there going to be some inappropriate behavior with a babysitter or with a neighbor's kid? Or so I think there's the issue of, is there safety in kids being around? And I'm not saying that, sex addicts are not particularly, in fact, mostly doing offending behavior, but looking for young people. Young is one of the number one search terms on porn. And so certainly people end up with looking for 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds, but nonetheless, if you looked at it. So my point is number one, I would be concerned about my family and people come over. But the other is someone leaving something open? Are they walking by? Are they looking at a browser? So not necessarily related to direct contact, but more about, is this stuff just lying around? And is it a safety issue if my, daughter-in-law picks up a computer and gets on there and there it is? So Tammy, why don't you address Well, either one. The first one, I think, because we get a lot of, oh my God, this happened and my kids, are they safe? And I don't mean to be dismissive. It's just we know a lot about that.
Yes, and so I've got two thoughts on this. One is, contact is very different than viewing. The other aspect is objectifying. And so, if your husband is someone like, let's take it out of the granddaughter and friends, but if you're out in public, is he ogling, people of a young age? That would be an indicator. I would be looking for that. I would be going like, okay, he's got this pattern where he's, paying way too much attention. He's too interested in that. And that would be a concern. Here's the other side of it though. You said he's going, he's in, he's working with a CSAT, he's attending groups. What is his, yeah, like, what is his level of recovery? What is his, relapse prevention plan? How often is he attending meetings? Because just warming a seat in meetings and not working the steps is, like, that doesn't get you the recovery that you're needing. But I think it's also a fair question to ask him. If he's working on a recovery program, it's like, how am I going to know my grandchild is safe and her friends and those type of things? And what are you doing to make sure that you are creating an environment that is safe? So a large chunk of it goes to him, but and if he's not in denial and he's being accountable, he's going to say, yeah, like, this could be a problem for me and I need to set up safety things. I'll be out of the house when they're over, or whatever you need to do. Or
Right.
so, yeah, like, that would be, I'm taking responsibility for this. I'm bookending, I'm contacting my sponsor, I'm whatever, you know but like Dr. Rob said, like, an addict is not an offender until, there is an intersection of those things. But I'm also concerned, like, if he's not in solid recovery, I'd be more concerned. And I would also be concerned about, kids finding stuff on technology because, the phone is sitting there and they pick it up to, look for a movie, whatever, so it's way more complex. I think it's a fair question to talk to your husband about. I think it's a fair question to ask if you can, have a conversation with his CSAT, and find out, because this is individualized. This isn't like all sex addicts, whatever. This is like, what is your husband's, arousal template? What are his actions? What is his recovery plan? All of those aspects of it. So fair to be concerned. I wouldn't be, sticking my head in the sand. I also wouldn't be catastrophizing. I would just
Right.
be practical and pragmatic and looking at, what do I need to do to make sure I feel safe as well as my
Yes.
granddaughter. So yeah,
That was what I was going to say is
yeah.
we talk about boundaries, and boundaries are to make yourself feel safe. So listen, I don't want anybody to think, well, Robin Town, you said, I can tell you the percentages of people who look, I'll just say it, all the research tells us that if someone looks at underage porn, the likelihood that they'll actually go on to a contact offense is about 4%. So even though people think, and this is actual research, so people think, oh, they're looking, they're going to touch, and actually that's very, very, that's not true for 96%. And I go into the courts and I do expert witness work where I have to explain to the court, these are the statistics, because a lot of people, while they're doing that, must be doing that. But to the point of boundaries, I'm interested in what makes you feel safe. So whatever he's doing or isn't doing, if you don't, you can say, hey, the kids are coming over, the teens, I'd rather you went out to a movie. Or could you just be in the door and say hi or have a bite to eat with us and then leave? Because it's not about what he might do or not do. It's about, are you comfortable with what's happening? And I wouldn't want to turn a blind eye if you obviously don't feel entirely comfortable. So with out an accusation, or you're doing this, you can say, I'd feel more comfortable if this or that. And it's about your feelings. If that's how you feel, he can't argue with you. As far as the devices being around, I think that is really that's about filters, that's about blocking, that's about placing things where you leave them, that's about all, protecting. They don't have to be a porn and sex addict to some people look at porn and how they protect their families and make sure that that they don't have a friend of their kid who's looking on it. So to me, there are different issues. One is protecting your family members or friends or kids the way you feel safe, even if it isn't accurate. I'd be safety first. And the other things, I think the two of you should sit down and say, where are we vulnerable kids looking into this, and um, how can we begin to set a system up in the house so that everyone's safe?
And here's another thing. If he goes, "Oh, I'm great. I'm doing,"
Right.
trust your gut and go, that's not making me, having it be, yes. And I know you go, he's looked at images that are the same as our grandkids, and that's terrifying. And that's so compartmentalized for people. Like, if they were making that connection, that's different. They're not. And I'm not making excuses. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just, like, so here's how you can move forward and do things so that you're taking care of you and you can have a great interaction with your grandchildren.
Well, this is one of the things that comes up in residential treatment, right? Because part of our one of the most important things we do is break through people's denial when they say, and it's our job for them when they say, "Oh, this is okay, it's no big deal," to get them to say, "Actually, it is." And so Tammy's right. When I work with a man who has been, hitting on 23-year-olds and setting up kind of, "I'll give you money if you do this or that," it's all fair game until I say to him, "Isn't your daughter 23? And how would you feel if you were and you're the father?" And that's the kind of challenge that we do in treatment. We have to make them look at it through a completely different lens because, oh, that's them, that's this. And then there's the, well, do you think they're happy people? Don't you think they have problems? And so it is a process, but until you feel safe and comfortable, you need to do what you feel is best for your family. But I wouldn't accuse. You are
Right.
doing this. I know you are, because that's not going to get anybody anywhere.
No, but you can create healthy boundaries. Okay, essay here. A little over a year since D-Day, multiple SAA meetings with sponsors, step 7, CSAT, etc. My partner seems, my thoughts, not hers, to be feeling a little bit safer, and our relationship is showing signs of some repair, though so much more to go. One thing partner has said is that they want to have a deeper love from the person they are with, and I'm struggling with ways to show her the love since it's never really been part of my life. Any advice, resources I should look into? And it says continued. Oh, I don't know. Oh, part 2. So skip down 1. I try
Okay.
to ask her ways, wants, needs, desires that she can feel more love, but sometimes I believe that she wants me to figure it all out versus being told, aka putting the ball on the tee. How can I navigate this?
Well, there's a lot there. And I'll just start by saying this is an intimacy disorder. When people say, "What do you treat?" I say, treat people with profound intimacy disorders. And in some ways, the sexual behavior isn't just a way to avoid their feelings or emotions or, the things that or trauma. Part of it is they want to be closer and they want to be more connected, but it's frightening for them or they don't know how. And those of you, again, I'll go back to residential treatment. One of the things we do in treatment is we have the spouses write a letter and simply say, "These are the things that I've been through in my relationship with you. These are things I don't like, I'm concerned about, whatever." And I used to think, "Oh, okay, well, that letter's going to be 90% sex." But what it is 80%, "I never feel connected to you. You don't listen to me. You're always busy." It is really this emotional. And when I do consults and I'm on the phone with a couple, I say to the spouse, one of my first questions is, "Do you feel like you've had the kind of emotional intimacy that you've wanted?" And 201, the spouse is saying no. So I think this is very typical, especially when someone is hitting, 6 months, a year, and now you're looking for more of each other, but we don't know what the heck to do. So I think this is a discussion with your spouse about, "I really want to be there for you. I do want to meet your needs. I wish I knew what they were." By the way, you might think about what you need. "I want hugs. I want comfort," because we all have the same needs. One of the things that's very important for me to teach addicts is to not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Meaning, yeah, look at all the sex I have. I'm so needful. If I just got rid of all these needs, well, the needs are good. To feel wanted, to feel important, to feel special, to feel it's how our clients act them out. That is the problem. So what I'm saying to you is that he does have, obviously he's human, and everyone's needs are reasonably similar. So the question is, um, what? So I would sit down with you and I would say, and we do this also in treatment. You can go online and you can look up list 15 dependency needs, and it'll get things like to feel supported, to feel loved, to get hugs, whatever it is. And then I ask the clients to rank them. Which ones do you think are the most important? Well, to feel special. Okay. And then we sit down and say, what would make you feel special? And so we actually go to, what do you need? And so I do think what you have to think about it not as the person you love, or the spouse might think about it not as someone I love and they should know, because we should, but more of a, it's really sad that they don't know, but I want to be closer to them and let me teach them. Um, and I think it's really important to the addict perspective to say, "Oh, that scares me," or "I want to back away," or whatever that is. Um, But I think it's okay to say to someone, I wish you knew how to do this. It's painful that you don't, but you've run away from it for so many years, and let me show you what I need. Now, if you have to remind me every single time, I ain't getting it. Um, and oftentimes I know you guys know it's simple things. When we get in bed, could you put down the TV? Could you put down the phone and just sit and talk to me? It doesn't have to be some huge take me on vacation and all of that kind of thing. I think those is the time. And by the way, intimacy, one of the big pieces is sex. Tammy, I was just talking to we have guys who, after they've been through residential treatment, they go into an online program with us so that we can stay connected with them. Because a lot of people fall out. That's the hardest part is when they go home. And one of the guys was saying, I want to be closer to my spouse. I just don't know how. And I don't know what to do. And I know she wants, I mean, literally, he has run from it for so long. And he feels badly about letting you down. He does not know what to do. So I wouldn't take that personally because after all, he acted out and wasn't particularly thinking about you either. So, Cami, you want to mention maybe a little bit of sensate focus or beginning to,
Well,
or
and
anything?
I
I'll
put,
leave it to you.
yeah, because this is this is the essay. So, like, out of the doghouse for men who've been caught cheating, that might be a really helpful work group. The healthy intimacy, it just started last week. You could still join that one. That might be a really, good place. But I'm with Dr. Rob. I tell partners all the time, you know, I, if you say, I want more empathy, what does that look like? Tell me exactly what that would look like, in because we are clueless with all of this stuff and we have to be taught. And it would be fair for, and you can say to your betrayed partner, I hate that I have to ask you to do this, but I really need you to be more concrete with this because I am confused. I want to do it and I want to do it in a meaningful way. Here's what I like to do is to take it out of you tell me what to do, but can we problem solve this together? Can we look at this is an issue? Maybe this might be, get some help with a qualified couples therapist. But if the two of you can sit down and go, we're disconnected in this way. We have this goal of we're going to be connected in a more connected, meaningful way. And here's where we are. So how do we get there? And, I would, it would really be meaningful to me if you were able to do this. It would be really meaningful to me if you were able to do this. Great. Like it's having a conversation, it's communicating. And partners hate that they have to tell the addict partner how to do stuff but we didn't get the owner's manual. We didn't learn how to do that ever, and so we need instruction. And how can we meet your needs? Your needs are your needs. We want you to tell us, and we'll do our best. We won't do it perfectly, but if we're really into healing the relationship, we sure will try. And if we've got questions, we need to use our words and ask and say, could you clarify that? I'm curious what that means. Like you can say it in a really not, I can't do any of this. You can, and you want to be in a connected and meaningful relationship with the person who loves you and who you love. Is scary as heck for both of you. And so, but yeah, so Dr. Rob mentioned sensate focus touch. So if you're to the point where like we're trying to connect, with touch or toward moving towards sex, sensate focus touch. And we talk about this often, Masters and Johnson, but that is like, okay, can we just sit next to each other and hold hands? Can we, massage feet? Can we do stuff that is not with the goal of having, intercourse? Okay. And then what would we need to do? And there's a whole plan, and there's therapists that help with that. If you're in good recovery from addiction and you're struggling in that area, then having a therapist who gets sexual health and sex addiction, that could be a good timing point for that. So anything else, or we'll move on?
Well, I just, you know me, I was sitting and I did write Tammy a very simple instruction sheet, which was, you know, look up dependencies, not hard. They should be a list of to be needed, to feel important, to feel special, to have time to myself, whatever it is. And I would pick some and say, and then you say to your partner, okay, I need you to know that I need to feel appreciated. But then you have to tell them how. because we don't know what to do. And so, well, this is how I feel appreciated. If when we're having a bite to eat, you put down the computer and you just focus on me, I don't have to ask you and ask you. That makes me feel appreciated. When you go out and you do this extra errand I didn't even ask you about, that makes me feel appreciated. So tell us what are the most important needs you have and how we can go about meeting them because we really
Hmm.
don't know. And by the way, we need correction.
Hmm.
That wasn't quite it. Listen, that I know that every couple wants to feel understood in terms of how to support each other and what they need. But most healthy couples have a better way of communicating that. They can instinctively feel that made that person, we're so in our heads, we don't know what to do. And then we feel ashamed and then we don't want to disappoint. It's a whole thing. So I would say sit down, figure it out together. One of the things I do with the guys, right, and I'll just say this real quick in treatment, is I ask them to list their needs. And how do you know they're being met? Like I said. And then I say, why don't you make a list of your spouse's needs? And what do you think their needs are? And how do you think they might meet their needs? So I'm asking them to look at both themselves and you. Um, and by the way, he can sit down and say, or you as an addict can sit down, these are things I need. And this is how, you get to have an ask. Just because you created pain doesn't mean you don't have an ask. And I'll say one more thing to all of you, which is we have to regardless of your anger and hurt and disappointment, we still deserve respect and support. Now, you may not be able to give it to us, but we go to 12-step programs, we go to groups, we go to the people we call Tammy, and we say, I just need to feel like I'm worthwhile. As an addict, you don't have to do that because you may be angry and disappointed, but someone does because his need or her need to feel valued. Nothing wrong with that. You just may not be in a place to do it right now, and the way they went about getting it before was destructive. Anyway, we got lots more questions. I know we do.
Okay. I am not aware of any, this goes back to the grandchild. I am not aware of any inappropriate behaviors. I find it highly disturbing that he would be attracted to someone as young as his granddaughter. He says that it's normal for an SA to be attracted to young people. Here's my problem with this is he says it's normal, like, and you've heard from his lying lips for however long. And it's not, it's typical. Like this is not normal, nothing in addiction is normal. So like saying it's normal is not fair in my opinion.
Healthy.
Yeah, it's not healthy at all. And so is it common? Is it typical? Yes. And just like Dr. Rob said, it's like, you're looking at a 23-year-old, which is, an adult, but it's just the same age as your daughter. Is that like all of those things? And at the end of the day, anytime we're objectifying somebody, looking at their body parts and thinking of them for our sexual gratification, it's a problem, and even if they're age appropriate, it's still a problem. And you partners, I know for sure you will never understand how an addict thinks and compartmentalizes. You can't because you would never, ever, ever do these
Right.
things. And this is pretty typical. And if he's got healthy boundaries and good support and a good recovery program, he can manage, his triggers and he can behave appropriately. And it goes back to what we said earlier is what do you need to do to take care of you? So, and him telling you, oh, it's all normal and it's usual. No, like, I'm glad you're here. Do your research, find out what is common, even if
Right.
unhealthy. Good.
And I'll tell them something just to say, men and women are different.
Mm-hmm.
And we do a lot of research on what men objectify. And the number one thing is youth. And I do think there's something biological in there. We want to, go to young people and have more babies. And so it doesn't surprise me at all. Now, what is young? Young is 24 or young is 14. There is a huge difference, between something that would be arrestable. But I want to say it in a different way than Tammy. Well, two things. At my age now, and I say, really, there are a lot of beautiful people. I live in Los Angeles. Live near a really big gym. And I look over them and I think, that's a beautiful person. God bless youth. That's what I say. I remember how wonderful that was because it's not my time in life to be pursuing or involved in that. But I do, God bless them. They're beautiful. I hope they won't even know that until it's too late. Um, I wouldn't demonize the attraction. Look, people go to bars all the time and have a drink. You will never understand how some of us can't go to a bar. Many, many men may say, "Oh, hey guys, look at it." that may be fine for them, but if you're an addict, you have to avoid situations like that because it feeds your addiction. It's not just about upsetting you, or maybe that person will be uncomfortable. It's like, I'm ready to have a drink, or I had a drink. So, anyway, these are very tricky things to negotiate. And you can't watch this person's eyes every moment and say, what are they looking at? Um, so is it normalizable depending on the age? Is it healthy for someone as an addict? No. Acknowledge, great, move away, keep going. And you got to love that town. You got God bless those young people. They're so beautiful. I just like I really like saying that. I remember.
Yes, it's been decades. Okay. I am not aware of any inappropriate. Oh, wait, that's never
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. No, keep
I
going.
miss betrayed. Do all co-addictions need to be treated at the same time for successful recovery of any individual addiction? Is it pointless to work on sex addiction if other behavioral addictions are active?
Well, I want to just comment on that first, which is the word behavioral.
Mhm.
So if treating addiction of this kind, whether it's an eating disorder or gambling, or when it's really a behavior, we need to have our wits about us. I need to think, oh, I want to do that. That's not a good idea. What do I do instead? I've learned that when I see this and I feel this way. So, and what happened to do I need to talk to someone about me? This is relapse prevention. How do you manage when you get triggered? You're going to get triggered. We go through this with people. So if I'm drinking and using, I'm by de facto, I'm disinhibited, right? My brain isn't clear. Maybe fine for drinking around, sitting around having a drink with friends, but I'm walking down the street and I'm not able to clearly think this is a good idea. This is not a good idea because I'm not physically and emotionally present. No, no one can really deal with a behavioral addiction if they're actively drinking and using, because they won't be able to hold on to those decisions or engage in those decisions. And for some people, the drinking leads to the sex, but if you're talking about behaviors, I think of someone we had in treatment recently. He has problems gambling. He was about 50 pounds heavier than he is now, and he has a problem. So he has a problem with impulsive behaviors. And I think you can look at that as a more global thing, which is, what does Tammy say, whack-a-mole? I've been gambling, I put that down, and then I go do this, and then I do this. It does, I think you can treat multiple behavioral addictions at the same time. But I'll tell you when you can't. One, when someone's suicidal and they're so depressed they can't handle it. And the other, if they're still drinking and using, and you can't really address any of that. So, yeah. Obviously, sex is the most damaging because maybe someone's going to spend your kid's college fund, or maybe they're going to gain a bunch of weight, but they're destroying your relationship. They're destroying your family. They're destroying their health. To me, that is big on the hierarchy. Um, I don't know, Tammy. I know that you want to say one is better than another, but
No,
um,
no, they're like, I don't, no, I am with you that any form of mind mood altering substances takes this offline. And so, there, yeah, there is nothing, that can really be addressed in the behaviors if you're still in active use of substances. Okay, so then let's talk about behaviors. And like Dr. Rob said, gambling, food, whatever. Scott, our colleague Scott, and I did a webinar last week, Wednesday, and we talked about this actually came up on the webinar, but he talked about a three-circle plan and how he uses the three-circle plan across all addictions. And I love that. I've actually shared that with lots of people. So if the inner circle, if I have a gambling addiction, my inner circle will uh, have gambling, or my middle circle will have, I'm looking online at, I don't even know gambling sites, I don't gamble, but like I'm starting to go look at, or I'm paying attention to the football game because I want to know the scores, and I'm thinking whatever, like that would be my middle circle,
right.
so but the inner circle would be gambling. Yeah, I do have a food addiction. I've owned it on this, so food has been a struggle for me. So I know, the things I need to do so that I stay in my outer circle. Every now and then, I'm standing at the pantry going like, yeah, I want something. And then I go, okay, what do I need to do? Because my inner circle would be, I'm just going to mow down everything in the pantry. My middle circle is going like, okay, I'm looking for something in the pantry to make me feel better. It's not going to work, and so then I get back to my outer circle. So I have a plan, to address anything. If I'm looking to escape, like I need to go for a walk. I need to call somebody. I need to do something different. So I think, like, yes, looking. at all of these, our treatment center does a great job of looking holistically across, the all of the behaviors. Lots of people go off to a substance program, and the only thing that gets treated is substances. And guess what? They get out of treatment and they're still acting out on everything else.
Well, it happens to
And
eating disorders too, or GAM, they go into recovery.
yes,
No one talks about
absolutely.
that.
Yes. And yeah, so we're looking for external things to make us feel okay. It never works. But if we start paying attention, and yes, some of them are worse than others, being a few pounds overweight or dealing with something, is a problem. And that would that be the most primary? No, but is it something to go, hey, I got a little issue with this, and that's something, I need to be paying attention. If I'm start paying attention, that's different than being constantly compulsive, which is what I
I
am
think,
and
I
did.
really
So
like what Tammy said before, because I didn't think about it this way, but if I have a sex addiction and I also have a gambling problem, well, if I'm back to the gambling, then I'm not doing well. And it doesn't really matter if what I'm
okay.
doing isn't the
And
sex.
you said you have to step away for a second.
I do, but what I'm saying is very important. So of course I got to
Okay.
finish.
Yeah. No. Okay.
Um, so I would, if someone's very focused on sex addiction, but they're gambling or I would say, oh, that person isn't doing well. They're looking to escape what they're feeling. It's going to bleed into other areas. So whether that's a primary problem or not, what matters to me is they're doing something that is not healthy. They know it's not healthy, and then all the doors are open. By the way, Tammy, I did want to tell you my solution to compulsive eating is this is mine. Do I want an apple? That is because if I want an apple, I'm probably hungry. If I don't want an apple, but I'd rather have cheesecake, I'm probably not hungry.
Okay.
That's how I
No,
do it.
and that would be a very fair, yeah. Like I always know, like if I'm just like opening the fridge or the
Right.
cupboard and I'm just grazing,
Sugar. I'm a
well,
big
sugar,
sugar.
carbs, whatever. Yeah, I'm looking for something to stuff in, and it doesn't work. So I
I'm
pay
going to go
attention.
take a momentary
Okay,
break and I'll be
okay.
right back.
And you can hear me though. So, okay, my partner is a porn and sex addict. He is attending SA groups now and is on a wait list for a CSAT. I have a boundary I set a boundary for my personal safety for him to not have solo sex as it ties into his porn addiction. Are there good ways to tell them that he's being honest about this boundary? Okay, the boundary is your boundary, and it can't be about his behavior. Well, let's let's go back. What is a boundary? A boundary is, in order to build trust, I'm looking for you to be doing recovery work, and it would cause me to have less trust if you are having solo sex. And honestly, if he's working he's not in the CSAT yet, but if he's doing the 12 steps, his sponsor will be telling him the same thing. If he's on a wait list for a CSAT and he's not doing anything else, like really hold the boundaries for you. But the boundary is, if you are unable to honor that, then the consequence will be that I'm going to take care of me by, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to sleep in the guest room. I'm going to whatever. The consequences, this is what I'm going to do to take care of me, because you can't, because you just proved that you're going to do what you're going to do regardless of what I've requested. But boundaries are not control or punishment. So you telling him, I've got a boundary for you not having solo sex, like I would encourage you to work with your qualified professional to help you understand how to set healthy boundaries for you. And I have an even better idea, or a supplemental idea. There's a boundaries work group starting this month. I'm going to put the link in. But Debbie McCrae, I call her the queen of healthy boundaries. She is fantastic, and she helps people with both internal and external boundaries. And an internal boundary is, I'm not going to betray myself. Regardless of what you do or don't do, I'm going to take care of me. But boundaries are very specific. They're not, somebody was like, my spouse has 150 boundaries, literally, and I was like, I wouldn't be able to remember them. So how could you ever? So they need to be, reasonable, physical, emotional, financial, spiritual, and these are what I'm looking to do to take care of me. And if you're able to hold that space, great. If you're not, then I'm going to, XYZ. So it feels like getting some help and support around, how to navigate that. But but for him, if he hasn't already, taken Sex Addiction 101 or Porn Addiction 101, great work group for him. If he isn't going to 12 steps, 90 meetings in 90 days, we recommend that. We did webinars on that. We have drop-in groups. We have lots of resources. Even if he's working with the best CSAT, if all he's doing is seeing a CSAT for 50 minutes once a week, do not plan on him having any kind of quality recovery. Addiction is a 24/7 issue. It's not enough to combat it. You're muted.
That's probably often best. You need a community. You can't.
Exactly. And yeah, and I don't hear, I have a feeling you guys are pretty early in the process. And so there's a lot. And so I'm glad you're here. Keep coming back. We've got lots of resources. I mentioned the previously recorded webinars. There's one on 12 step, there's one on, therapeutic separation. There's all kinds of topics, but we did two of them on porn addiction. January and February, Scott, had a two-part topic on that. It's a webinar. You can go watch it. That'll be, a good piece of information, but the work group would be fantastic for him and for you. So
I just want to add one thing in, which is I'm gonna ask for a little addict empathy, which is especially in the beginning, telling you if we've telling you whatever's happened that is important, like a slip, is essential. All the spouses want to know is what's been going on, what's the truth, how do I know? These are absolutely the things you need to know what the heck's going on in your life. It's a challenge for me as an addict, right or wrong, good or bad. If I tell you, you're going to be angry at me. If I don't tell you and you find out, you're going to be angry at me. What addicts do is they avoid your finding out in the beginning. What you want is not for us to never struggle. You want us to tell you. And so what I tell you what I rely on is when he comes to you and says, today wasn't a good day. I did a little bit of looking. I talked to my sponsor, or yeah, I was in it again today. I think Cami says early in the process. I do want to say more and more thing about that. Both you and the addict probably need to check in with somebody. He needs or she needs to say, I don't know what to do about this. Should I talk? Our brains don't work right. And spouses, you're in such a crisis, your brains aren't working right. But that's why we encourage all the support groups, having a community, because other people have been through this before and other people on the other side of it. You can learn from them. And please, I want to say to all of you, we're not pushing these free support groups because I don't even think they mention our program in there. But what they do is there's nothing like a community. No one will understand me except people who are like me in this area. Otherwise, I feel like a crazy pervert if I'm an addict. But if there's lots of other people who are with a bunch of crazy perverts, I don't feel so bad. Excuse my silliness, but laughter helps me get through some days. All right, what do we got?
I just put the link for the 12-step programs in there. But like I said, Scott and I did a webinar talking, because there's a whole bunch of them. Like with alcohol, you go to AA, but with S groups, there's a bunch. And so we talked about, how do you find a healthy meeting? What do you need to do? So that was on 2/7/24. I just look that one up again. You can find that webinar that helps you navigate it. All of these are free resources. So you take what you need, leave the rest. Okay. So the next one, thank you so much for this betrayed partner here. Almost 8-year relationship, very close, loving relationship. Sex addiction discovered in the first year. He did the work and things were great for years after. Massive gut punch discovery just a month ago of relapse and really struggling to cope. We still share a home. Can you ever really trust again? Is it possible to move on with a person who has betrayed you so deeply without losing self-respect? Is it better to just leave?
Well, there's so many questions in there, and so I'm going to break a few down. And I'm just going to say this to you with all due respect. I don't know what you were told or what you found out, but I think the word was he did the work and things were great. Well, you don't do the work. The work is ongoing. I just don't take my blood pressure today. I mean, in my life, I have to take it twice a day, whatever it is. You're never done with the work. So if he stopped going to therapy therapy may at some point dissipate, but if he stopped going to support groups, if he's not talking about it, if you don't see him reading stuff about it, if you don't hear him listening to the podcast, you don't just walk away from this and say, oh, good, I haven't done it in a year, I'm done. So what I read your words, they may not be accurate. We don't know what you're saying. I mean, we don't know you, but when I hear he did the work and things are great after, makes me wonder if it was kind of okay, got this down, and the other piece that if that's true, and I don't, again, I don't know you and I don't know your situation, but I don't know that if you ever relapse was just discovered, well, maybe relapse happened 6 years ago. I don't know, just because you find something out doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I just started doing this. Well, so I'm saying that trust is to some degree black or white. You trust or you don't. And you would trust at the beginning that there's a commitment and things are changing. I would trust if he struggled and I heard about it, as long as I was seeing that every day or over time, you realize he had a chronic emotional condition that needs ongoing work. So my trust would go out the window to anybody who said, well, I got this and I've been doing this for a year and now I'm done. Um, Tammy, you can probably mention a little bit about some of the things we have out there about therapeutic separations and all that, and books people have written. And um, I would just want to say, will you trust again? I don't know. Will you ever trust in the same way? No. Once I know that you could go out in the world and do something that you know would hurt me and do it anyway, I'll never look at you the same way again. I'll never believe that you fully have my back. I mean, that's not coming back. And I'm sorry. Good things can come out of it, but that basic naive, which is a good thing, trust that I just, that's gone. And of course, what comes up with it is what else are you doing that I don't know about? And so the whole thing spills over the table. But I'm more, and Tammy can talk more about this. It seems very black and white. Like, do we move on or don't we move on? Well, if I saw him jump into, okay, I'm going to take some groups, I'm going to go to treatment, I'm going to work on that, I'm going to reinvest, I would feel more trusting. Um, I think it's a little soon. Well, I think you need to talk to other spouses about this. And this is really where those support groups. I wanted to stay. I didn't want to stay. I didn't know what to do. I found he was lying. These are really questions that your peers have been through. There is a group that I think it's still going, right, Tammy? It's a free group called for I don't know, certainly for women who decide, am I staying or am I going? And I think it'd be a good thing to listen, because they're not doing it. They're thinking, well, I'm considering, and what we've bought, this and the that. Um,
So it's
and
called
oh, one
moving
more
on
thing.
alone.
Sorry, feelings are not facts.
Right.
So the fact that you feel like leaving, you feel like this is total destruction, you feel, well, the truth is there might see some very intact and important parts of your relationship that you don't want to give up on. And so I think it's not a black and white, what do I do thing? It's really an exploration. So Tammy, I blathered enough.
So we have the moving on alone drop-in group. It's for partners, women who have been left, or have one foot out the door. So that's one thing. That's on Thursdays. Free. It's on, I'll put the link for that. I did put the link. We have a Should I Stay or Should I Go? We did a series of 4 webinars. One was Kristen Snowden, and I told you I was going through all the YouTubes. Guess what? That one was really popular. But it was 10 questions, like this is the simplified version, but it was 10 questions to journal about. Do I even like this person? Whatever. Like, journal about it. Think about it. Both of you do that. Like, do we want to be together? I'm with Dr. Rob. What are his actions? I say this, and I still go to my 12-step meetings. I've been in recovery for decades, and I like, this terrifies me. Like, I don't want that. I don't want to like go, oh, I'm doing pretty good, so I'm just going to quit doing everything that worked for me and made me, be on a different path. Addiction is the only place that I see this happen, is like, oh, I'm doing really good. So all of the things that I did that helped me, I quit doing. And then I wonder why I'm back in the struggle again, because we quit doing the things that worked. So will you ever, no, should you ever trust him fully again? No. And I suspect, and I'm not, this is zero guilt, blame, shame, but I suspect you went, oh, good, things are good again now, and
Right,
you had that feeling of like, oh, great, he's past that. That was just a little blip.
right,
If it's addiction, it's a chronic condition. We either die in active addiction or in active recovery. There's really no in between. So what is his choice, for moving forward? And I would really encourage you, the Healthy Boundaries Work Group is coming up. That could be so useful for you. The healthiest relationships have the clearest boundaries. You know where everybody stands. You know whatever, you know what you need. You aren't betraying yourself. I did also put, we do support sessions. Myself and several colleagues, we do support sessions, and we help people who are, at these kind of crossroads. It's not therapy, one time 25 or 50 minutes, but lots of people, we can help them go, okay, here's where you are, here's some resources, touch back if you need to, but we can point you in a direction that can be useful based on what you need. So that's another option. Again, take what you need, leave the rest. But my concern for you, like, will you ever trust again? Yes, maybe not him, and I try really hard not to disappoint and hurt people, and I still do. And I make amends for that. I'm a human, so I'm always going to, do something, so those of us in humanity, which is all of us, we're going to do stuff. So how do we navigate that space and show up with integrity? I love our residential program. It's seeking integrity. We're not saying we're going to magically fix everybody and they're all going to be cured from addiction. No, we're striving for integrity. So yeah, I hear you, and I'm sorry that you're in that pain, but hopefully those resources I put in the chat will be useful for you.
I just want to say one more thing, which is what you said here. Is it possible to move on with a person who's betrayed me so deeply without losing self-respect? And the answer is I absolutely think so. I think it's about setting boundaries and structure around what makes you feel safe, and that includes what this other person is or isn't doing. And then you watch. Do I feel safe? Do I feel like, does this feel like self-respect or does this not feel comfortable? You're going to have to find your way. So I don't think it's black and white. I think you really need to think about, what would lead toward more connection and health and hope? What would lead me away from that? And only you can understand what those decisions are and go to a support group. So,
Even if you leave, there's grief. And so there's grief in
right.
staying, that he's not the person I thought he was. We don't have the relationship I thought we did. And if you leave, there's grief because you're now like there's loss. There's loss no matter which way you cut it, So there's no easy like, well, just get rid of him and then I'm going to be magically okay. No, this is a process and you can heal. And this is like you holding healthy boundaries for yourself that's how you have self-respect. It's not about what he does or doesn't do. It's like, I'm going to take care of me. I now realize that this person has some bigger problems than we anticipated, and I'm going to take care of me. Okay, the next question. I'm the betrayer, and my betrayed partner needs questions answered, mainly regarding my relationships with my family of origin. We are 1 year from D-Day. She is convinced I know the answers, but after long introspection, I do not know. I have just suppositions that I may or may not be true. I really want to know how to answer with honesty without denying her reality.
I don't know. I mean, what else? That is honesty, is I truly don't know. And I do want to tell you, well, maybe Tammy can, I think I'd like Tammy to speak more about what may or may not be true or how to give her the answer and all of that. I simply want to say that for us as addicts, it's meaningful to understand what happened to us. To me, it's important because it helps me think I'm not a bad person, but really, really awful things happen to me or terrible, and I am a broken person. So I think for me, as it gives me peace of mind to know I didn't mean to hurt you, but hurting you is the collateral damage of what I grew up in, the mess I am. However, not knowing about it doesn't, well, knowing about it doesn't mean my behavior is going to change. And they say in Alcoholics Anonymous, many alcoholics have gotten sober, never going to therapy. In fact, more than did. So is it useful? Sure. Is it helpful to understand? Yes. But when someone comes into treatment, trust me, every man who comes in says, I want to know why? And my answer is, on some level, that's not as important as knowing how to stop and how to change your behavior. Um, and maybe you'll know and maybe you won't, but your behavior tells them that you, well, actually I'll tell you one thing that I always surprised me and that left me thinking, which is what we leave you spouses feeling is how we felt growing up. What we leave you spouses feeling, we're literally showing you. I felt abandoned, I felt neglected, I felt abused, and we leave you feeling abandoned and neglect and abused. So honestly, you don't need to know the details. You can just look at how this person has treated you, and you can say, wow, I bet that's what happened to them. Facts are less important than how it's left me acting in my adult life. And Tammy will always hear me say, I can show you a film from beginning to end about everything that ever happened to you, but you're still going to go to strip club because you haven't learned how to not do that. So the why questions, they come after you've had some time in healing and they're certainly not required. Um, but I wouldn't lie either. What I'd be curious about is what does it mean to your spouse? what would it mean? Sorry, Tim, I stepped on your line.
No,
Go
no, no,
ahead.
no,
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 you go
no.
ahead.
I was when I see a partner that says, I need this," and I'm always curious, like, what do you think is going? How is that going to help? How is that going to help you move forward? And it's usually I'm going to know why, just like Dr. Rob said, and then he's not going to do that again. Which is like those are faults. All of that is faults. So understanding that, like I learned. I don't know, probably 6, 7 years ago, can never remember, like another piece of the why. Maybe it was only five, 5 years ago, another piece of the why. And you know what? I went, oh, that's interesting. I've been in recovery for decades. It did not
Right.
change. Yeah, I did not need to know that. It's interesting and it's useful, on some level, but it did not change anything about, my recovery journey. So and it's like what I hear is at a year in, you're spending all kinds of time spinning about things that happened in the past rather than focusing on what do you need to do today and how are you moving forward, individually and together. What is your how much energy are you dedicating to your now program, and what is your plan for this week and next month and all of those things, versus like I'm racking my brain, thinking about what happened to me. That's like Dr. Rob said, the reel of film that that's not going to change. That's back there. Dr. Eddie shared Dr. Gabor Mate's "What has happened you can't make unhappen," and anything that's happening now is like now you're creating the trauma, now you're dealing with those things, but you're creating it now. It happened back then. That isn't going to change. So to me, it would be interesting to ask your partner, what is it you're hoping to find by knowing what happened? And are there other ways to have the goal? It's safety. I'll give you a hint. It's safety. I'm looking for,
Right.
like, I want you to be safe. I want you to not do that again. And how much more helpful could it be to go, this is my relapse prevention plan. This is what I'm doing today. I'm talking to my sponsor. I'm reaching out to my therapist. I'm on this group. I'm doing these things so that I'm not, going back to previous behaviors.
I would also want to say that on the other side, we can be very manipulative. Well, let me tell you, shouldn't be too angry at me because after all, look at what I went through. Well, I'm sorry that you went through that. I have great compassion. I hope you get to work on it, but that doesn't mean you're not responsible for what you're doing now. And I think a lot about, oh, I went through this, and God love them. I'm sorry. I am sorry that you had that experience, and I am deeply sorry that you're so broken. But you don't get to abuse, dismiss, and take advantage of someone you care about as an adult because those things happen to you. So I'm kind of the other way, which is I don't care what happened to you. I'm sorry. I hope you work on that. What I care about is what's happening now. Um, so anyway, I think we
Yeah.
covered
And
that one.
and family of origin, like I said, interesting work, and if you did that in 5 years, 10 years, great. The right now, work on, you got a relationship that clearly is
Right.
struggling
There's
because you've
trauma
got a
right
partner who's
now.
going like, I need to know. Okay, so betrayed partner, 1 year since D-Day. Addict spouse is not sexually acting out, but the damage that has been caused is endless. His large family of origin all believe me to be the most heinous
Hmm.
person alive. I am all evil to them. For years, I felt increasingly uneasy around them. After D-Day, I understand with more clarity how I've been positioned as the nagging, miserable, mean woman, as a means to an end for him to continue to access his addiction. I have effectively been his scapegoat. This is so hard to reconcile as merely addiction. I've been used so transactionally. He feels incredibly overwhelmed at the depth of no, he feels incredibly overwhelmed as the depth of his deceptions come to light. We are in therapeutic separation, though it hardly feels therapeutic. He tried to communicate the truth of his addiction to a couple of his adult siblings. However, they have blocked their ears, and I feel more under threat and under supported. I'm the only person in his life beyond fellowship that knows the truth. He's on this call.
Um, well, that's a lot.
It is,
So
yeah,
I
and
think,
and this is common. Like we hear this regularly, where the family is like you partner are the problem.
well, and that's a tragedy because, and this happens enmeshment and putting our families, and we have all kinds of There's workshops, there's more, but Tammy, right, Tammy,
I'm pulling.
TAMI at
Yeah,
Seeking Integrity. I think this is one of the most primary issues is our enmeshment with our family. But you're the primary person who is family now. And I'll tell you what, if you don't feel comfortable with my family, we're not going to go there for Thanksgiving because you're the one who's important. I respect my family. I love them. Or you know what? I can talk to them and you don't have to be there. You don't have to be engaged. Two things. Number one is this is a system, this family, and they're used to acting in a certain way. And there's nothing you can do to change their mind. Nothing you can do because no matter, Tammy, I know this in other situations, no matter how wonderful, how nice, once the door is closed and that system's running, even if you try and knock on the door and say, here, they're going to say, why are you knocking on the door? So there is no winning with that family. And I'll say, even if it has nothing to do with him, even if they just didn't want anyone involved or don't like you or whatever it is, his responsibility as a spouse is to protect you. And I've heard spouses say, well, I had to go, I never got to see my family because every Thanksgiving went to his family and I don't understand. And I don't want to do that anymore. It's our job to, you're our spouse. You are our primary family. By the way, when I hear this, I think, I wonder how often he talks to them. I have addicts who talk to their families every single day who, and when you're 50 years old, you don't necessarily need to have daily conversations with your mom or your sister, a sister-in-law, but I will tell you this, there's nothing you can do about that system. You can't change it. You can't have an effect on it. You will always be the bad guy. The person who can have an effect on that system is your husband. And he can have a system by not joining with them. You know what I would say? I don't ever want you to speak to my wife again like that. And I don't want to hear you gossiping, and I don't want to hear it because she's my wife and she comes first. And I'm not going to be around if you continue to do that. In fact, I think you owe her an apology. That is a good spouse. You come first. I not only is it not okay for you to be uncomfortable, I have to protect you against this big system. So for me, it's a priority thing. I think the addicts has to decide. And by the way, addicts who are very enmeshed with their families and aren't putting their spouses and current family first, I know a lot more about how active their addiction is because they're also banging on a door, but there's nothing there. And plus, their addiction is being reinforced. Oh yeah, she is difficult, and I understand why you're having Mary. I never liked her in the first place, and that's just going to make it more difficult for you to get your needs met by him. So the real issue is, to me, do you respect me enough to put me first? To when you hear those things, say it's not acceptable to me. This is the love of my life, my partner. I would be able to see very clearly where I lie in the priority process if well, my mom this and my sister that and I've got it. No, you come first. You are uncomfortable. It's his job to address that. um yeah.
we have an expert residential treatment program, and we have guys who have stopped the problematic behavior but are struggling with all of this other stuff. And so I put the link in there, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com if you've got questions, but I'm with Dr. Rob. Okay, the next question. Betrayed partner, I am struggling making peace with my husband's use of sex workers. He knew that he was possibly exploiting them and even sex trafficked, but he didn't stop. I'm so disgusted. And since we spoke about it, he is living in permanent deep shame. How do we move on? This is such a fundamental issue of values and moral compass.
Well, Tammy, do you want to start on that one?
Well, like, yes. Here, well, it's challenging because we have people who come in to our residential treatment program who are of a high moral compass, very, very much in church or synagogue, whatever, and their acting out behavior is completely different. And one of our colleagues, Jason, works with them because it's incongruent. My values are
Not
this direction,
integrity.
right, and my actions are over here. But it's compartmentalized. Like, I absolutely know for sure he was never thinking about any of those things when he was going to do his acting out because he wouldn't have been able to do it. And that's every addict. And I understand. And I'm sorry that you're disgusted and having such a hard time. I'm really frightened that he's in a deep shame spiral because the chances of him being able to maintain not acting out, are minimized. If you're living in that shame, it's shame and boredom, and stress are like three of the big time triggers. So him getting help, to stop the problematic behavior and address, that incongruent, lack of integrity, is key to this. You getting support, there's nothing that's going to make that okay. And there's nothing that's going to justify it. And it happened, that's where he is. And he's unfortunately not alone. Anybody who's acting out with addiction, we are not living in congruence if we have any kind of moral compass. That's just unfortunately how it is. In recovery, we learn to, and then we make amends. We do the things that we need to do. There are people that make, that join programs that help trafficked, people. There are people that, as part of their restitution, start, once they get good recovery, start doing things that would help,
Right.
and you can't restore it. Like, you can't undo that, but you can do things that would move things in a different direction.
Well, I just briefly want to speak of your relationship, which is, of course, you're disgusted. And Tammy said you can't imagine what an addict thinks because you're not an addict. And so we are able to split. This is why we named the program Integrity. One thing, bringing it all together from being disintegrated. But, if you take out you can put anything in there as an active addict, and I have betrayed it. I betrayed you. I betrayed my values. I betrayed my children. We are not thinking about, in fact, I'll say this, there is a man named Dr. Patrick Carnes who was my role model and taught me, wrote the books, developed the field. I got to work for him for a while. And he would say, a lot of addicts have very intact moral belief systems, ethical, but the addiction co-opts it. And I often talk about the person who's a heroin addict and they take every penny out of their kid's college fund without a thought. But in recovery, they might work 3 jobs to put that money back. You can't take away what has happened, but you can what we Tammy calls living amends. So I've heard men who spend a lot of money on sex workers. Well, is there a way you could give that money to the homeless? Is there a way you could give it to a school? Are there things that you, on that time, are there things you can do to right well, let me actually go to something else. I don't think his shame is your problem. And I don't think that you said, how do we move on? I think he needs to move on from his shame. You dealing with your disgust and unhappiness, you really need to take that to other supportive people who can support you in your feelings about it. He can't support you because he feels, I feel worse. No, I feel worse. No, I feel worse. There's no there. He has to find a way out of his shame so that he can have respect for you and himself. You just can't fix that for him. And so the how do we move on is really, I need to come to peace with what's happened. He needs to come to peace with what's happened, and then we can talk about moving on. But all of that, what addicts do, is a fundamental issue of values and a moral compass. And I love you, and I do. Partners will say, "Oh, well, how could you love me if you did this?" I do love you, and I did this. I do have a belief in my spiritual life, and I did this because I'm broken. And my thoughts and beliefs often don't match my actions. And that is integrity, when my actions match my beliefs and my feelings. So this is very typical. My most important to me is it's not your job to make him feel less ashamed. And just because you're angry and disappointed and disgusted, that's how you get to feel. And it's not, you don't get to say, well, I won't say that or talk about that because it's too shameful for him. He needs to go deal with his shame somewhere else. How can we move on is much less about, I think, what's going on between the two of you until there's a place where each of you has found some healing in this area with support. Um, yeah,
We have so many good questions.
I
I wish
know.
we had
You
more time,
warned
but yeah,
them.
that's always, I did. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Come back. Keep coming back. I have a special edition webinar this week, Wednesday, joining me, and John Taylor's on. I put John Taylor's Mother Enmeshment because I was browsing through our large library of previously recorded videos. So I put his enmeshment. And they're doing a retreat actually in California for the first time. I forgot when. I, check it out.
The alumni, you
Or
mean?
no, John
Oh,
Taylor and Dr. Ken Adams are
oh,
doing a Mother and Mesh Men
oh, right,
retreat
right, right.
in California, and like normally it's not there. So anyway, We have resources. We want you to heal. We want you to have recovery. We want you to have joy and peace. And I promise you, you can if you're willing to do the work. So keep coming back. We'll try to our best to help. Thank you, Dr.
I want
Rob.
to
Great to
answer more of
see
those
you.
questions. All right,
I
we'll
know.
be back. We'll be back.
We'll be back.
And this is all
Bye.
recorded. Go listen to the webinars that we've done and you will hear some of it. Bye, guys. Thank you for your time. I hope we're helpful.